Page 342, passing by. This is a lesson on harmonization. Again, we get to try and make up an accompaniment for the melody, and they're telling us which chords to use. So they've done most of the work for us. As usual, I have a process I go through when I approach. You want a plan of attack to do anything, just like I've always been doing in these videos. The first thing I want to do is I want to hear this melody. I need to actually get to know the melody fairly well, so I can spend most of my time focusing on the accompaniment. It's 1 sharp, we're in the key of G major, 2 4-time signature, and as far as the fingering goes, whatever, I'd like to connect it if I can. 1. Not bad. I don't care for the fingering they're using going from measure 8 to 9. In measure 8 I have here 5th finger, and measure 9 it's here. I don't care for that. I'd prefer something else. So I'm going to do something else. So I'm going to go back to like measure 4 where you, or 5, excuse me, where you have all these B's repeated. These. I'm going to change hand positions there to get ready for what's coming. And what I want in measure 6 is I want a thumb on the B. So in measure 5, I'm at 3rd finger, and then I'm going to put a thumb here. Then I'm going to cross over to 4th finger. Now I'm in position to go on. Once I can get that here, I'm good enough, because then in measure 7, it's I can come up here, 2. And that way I'm ready for 3rd finger. Of course, it's just a suggestion. You finger it any way you want. To me, that makes more sense to go from a 2 in measure 8 to here in measure 9 rather than 5 to 3. Of course, you could always do a finger substitution too. Once I have it down there, I could put thumb on it. I could put most any finger on it. And once I'm there, then I'm ready to go on too. So if you wanted to do that, in measure 7, it's here, like fingering that's marked. Once you play that, put thumb on it, hold it down as finger substitution, and then you're ready to go on. You do that too. There's different fingering availabilities. Now let's do the chords. First, I want to make sure I know what the chords are. It's a G chord. I don't know where to play it exactly. We'll just figure that out later. Here. And then it's a D chord, but they want to have sharp on the bottom, so I got to come up here. It's like a 1-5 chord. Now we're doing this a while until you get to measure 6, and then it's an A7 chord, which is here. It's an A7, and they want the C sharp on the bottom. That's too high. I got to be down here. I don't need all the notes. I could just leave that one out. Here, so I'm going from G to here. I don't know why they want C sharp on the bottom, but they do. That I like that, but we'll deal with it later. Right now it's just the chords. And then back to a D7 here. Here, it's a D chord with a 7th. Remember, the 7ths are minor 7ths. Major triad, minor 7th. And G chord again. And then the G7 with a B on the bottom. Well, G7 is here. An F natural now. It's a minor 7th. But the B's on the bottom, so it's here. Come down here. Again, it's kind of like that. And that resolves, of course, to a C. You notice the 7th chord resolve, or either that or they go to another 7th chord. And then next one is an A minor chord with a C on the bottom. It's here. Just come up 1. And then an A7 with a C sharp on the bottom. And a D7. And a G. Let's talk a little bit about chord sequence, a series of chords. What's going on? A lot of these 7th chords resolve because the 7th chord adds tension, and then we want resolution. Sometimes we delay the resolution and give more tension for a while because we like it so much, but most of the time it just resolves. So it's like in the measure 6, an A7 with C sharp on the bottom. Well, that would resolve to a D chord. It's like the 5 of a D. Except here they're adding a 7th. They're still here. They just add still tension, and then that goes to a G. My point is these 7 chords resolve to, it was like a 5-7-1. Well, that's sort of what these are doing, except it's the 5-7 is to the 1 of something. It's like a secondary dominant. We've had those before. Ring a bell. Since it all have some wine or something, I don't know. Now, I want to hear the melody and the harmony together. Here. Here. And you're wondering, how do these chords and the melody match? Well, if you not think about it, you're using the chords, the notes, the melody's using the notes in the chords. Here. That's how it works, I guess. Going on, that's it. A7 with a C sharp on the bottom. Here, and the C. And we didn't resolve it yet because we're going to resolve it on the next one. We could have, but we didn't. We're rebels, I guess. Here, and then a B on the bottom. Here, B. That's a F natural. But that's going to resolve to a C chord. It's a 5-7 of the secondary dominant, dominant of a C chord, which in G major is a 4 chord. And then here, and a fermata, hang on to that. I don't know why. I guess because you can take a breath. You made it through all that mess so far, and then we go on. The harmony sounds good, and the melody's using chords or notes primarily in those chords. Got a few others thrown in, that's okay. Now, I want to do something with this. I don't want block chords. They're suggesting quarter notes, broken chords. And I'm going to use 4 finger if I'm going to go here. I'm going to use 4 here. This is the way it is. Don't have to. Keep in mind, it's okay to hesitate. We're just trying to kind of figure this out. You can iron out the hesitations later as you continue to experiment. And hit C sharp. Oh, I want to do 2 here. Okay, I got it. Going on. And a B. So this is too high, I gotta come down here. And the C, gotta use block chords here, and then an A7 with a C. And that's gonna resolve to the D, in this case a D7. So that can resolve to the G. That's fine, you can use other dry 8th notes. What I'm doing, I'm just playing around with the broken chords and different patterns. So again, you get to experiment with the different patterns in the left hand, and this is a good one for it because they're not really introducing anything too weird. You have a lot of secondary dominants you're dealing with, but each of those are resolving to the chord they're secondary of. So it's like the D7 chord in measure 8 resolves to a G chord. Well, D7 is a 5 of G, so 5-7 of G. So that works. That's not secondary dominant. That's dominant, okay. But then you get a G7 with a B on the bottom, and that resolves to a C. Well, this is the 5 of the C chord, which in G major is a 4. So that's a 5 of a 4 chord in G major. And then toward the end, you get the A minor chord. An A minor chord in G major is a 2 chord. You've heard of those, I'm sure. And then the A7 chord is a 5-7 of a D chord, which is the 5 chord. So it's a 5-7 to the 5, dominant to the dominant, isn't that neat? Except instead of a D, they give it a D7. And that is the 5-7 of the 1 chord. So it just kind of keeps resolving. Yeah. It flows very nicely. Things to keep in mind, because sometimes when you're trying to figure out chords, you can add a 7th in there. If it works out. The 7th needs to resolve to whatever it is dominant of in most cases. But yeah, you can experiment with that.